Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So I was actually editing the Blood of My Blood episode reviews that I've been doing. I'm trying to schedule out all of my videos for October, which is 3 videos a week, so that's crazy due to the surgery I'm supposed to have on October the 8th. So I'm trying to get ahead, and I looked and I noticed I have episodes 1, 2, and 3. I'm editing number 4 right now, and then I have 6 and 7, and I don't have 5. So I guess I never reviewed Blood of My Blood episode 5. Obviously it's been a couple of weeks, several weeks actually. So I remember this episode because it's when they had Beltane, which is like the festival. So there was a lot that happened in this episode, but I'm pulling up some beats just in case it's because I don't want to miss anything. Yeah, so let me refresh my memory. So episode 5, in the last episode we left off, which was episode 4, Julia and Brian made a deal that she would help him, by doing that mission to sneak in and deliver a message to Ellen, which she did successfully, and in exchange she would help her escape. And so they had this plan to I think help her escape around Beltane, which is like this festival and everybody's going to this one area, but at the beginning of the episode, Brian's mom comes out and basically blurts out that the child is basically Brian's dad's, which it's not. It's Henry's. She only got with Brian's dad in order to protect the child, but it makes Brian think that she's lied to him, which she never did, and so he basically disagrees to help her and he leaves without her. So she's basically still stuck. It seemed kind of like a plot point just to keep her stuck there, but he's really honorable and he just didn't like the idea of her lying to him, and the way that his mom presented it was kind of like using the truth kind of like twisted in a way to get him against her, because she doesn't like Brian's mom is wary of Julia, which is Claire's mom. So just to get that all out there. So basically Beltane, everybody's heading to this festival. So we have a lot of rivalry. I feel like I did talk about the rivalry between Ellen and her sister Jocasta. So I feel like I filmed this before, but I literally can't find the clip anywhere. That is so bizarre. It really is very, very bizarre. Let me look on the phone real quick. I'll be right back. Whatever. I can't find it. Anyways, I feel like I've done this before. Anyways, so we have Ellen and Jocasta, and they're traveling with Ned. So Ellen and Jocasta, we get to see a lot of their dynamic as sisters, and again, Jocasta's younger actress really reminds me of the older actress who plays her in Outlander. So the casting was fantastic. They do some really mean kind of quips back and forth at each other, and essentially like when Ellen arrives at Beltane, she has to spend time with her betrothed Malcolm Grant. She doesn't want to, so they're kind of wandering around. They do this little dance thing that was really cool. It's kind of like just Scottish historical celebration type thing, which I thought was really cool. Ellen ends up winning the little dance contest, and so she gets to choose the king, basically the king of the festival, to be her king essentially, and she's supposed to choose Malcolm, but Murtagh is also there, and he's had a crush on Ellen, so he feels like this is his chance to try to impress her, and so Murtagh actually steps forward as a candidate, and so Malcolm Grant and the Grant people don't like that, and so Brian steps up with him, and then some other guys do, but essentially Ellen, when she looks and meets Brian's eyes, which they do this really cool moment in the dance where, because they have to trade partners and stuff, because it's like a dance where you just dance with everybody, and at one point her and Brian do dance together, but they have to keep it brief and not act like they're in love, obviously, so the forbidden romance aspects of this part was really cool, and they got to have some moments and stuff like that. So that was cool, but when she was getting ready to choose the king, she met Brian's gaze and he lightly shook his head, like one of those numbers. So I thought that was cool. So she chooses Malcolm, so they're the king and queen of Beltane, which was kind of interesting, again, historical stuff. So I remember one scene toward the end where Henry is actually at Beltane and he talks with Ned, because him and Ned fill a similar role where he's working for the Grants and Ned works for the Mackenzies, but they're essentially kind of like the same job occupation for both clans, even though the clans kind of rival each other or trying like this tense alliance. So they've had kind of conversations that are like professional but like also kind of personal, and so Henry's kind of discouraged about his search for Julia, and kind of him and Ned have a conversation, and Ned talks about somebody in his past that he loved that he had to leave behind, and he chose to let it go rather than living in misery without your loved one. And so his encouragement to Henry was just to let this love go, and obviously Ned doesn't know that the time travel thing, but So Ned's advice to Henry is just to move on, and Henry says, I can't, there's no life without her. So it was a really sweet moment, getting to get into Henry's head and see that he can't, there is no life for him outside of Julia and their unborn child. So that was kind of a sweet moment. So the Grants were obviously ticked that Murtagh dared to step forward when, like, no man should have stepped forward except for Malcolm. And so they saw that, like, even though other men stepped forward after that, it was seen as kind of a threat. So eventually they beat up Murtagh really bad. This is after actually Murtagh sees, I think Ellen and Brian go sneak off by themselves, and they have some moments. And I think, if I remember right, this is the episode where they finally have some moments, and it seems really like, I'm attracted to you, and kind of like that lust instead of love. But afterwards they have a conversation where they do actually, like, get to know each other and, like, the life that they've lived, and how Brian opened up to her about his life and his struggle with his dad. And I don't remember the details, but I remember loving that he opened up to her about that. And then she talks about how she's never had a choice before, and her decisions for her were always made by somebody else, and so this is the first time she's gotten to choose. And so it kind of it did actually kind of fix some of the issues. I wish it had happened earlier, where they had this conversation at the very beginning, and then it would have set a good precedent for an emotional connection first instead of the instant love connection. But at least now they have that established, why they're choosing each other, and, like, this is the first time she's had a choice. So that's why Brian is so important to her, and why what they see in each other and stuff. So that conversation, that scene between them did a lot. But at some point in that, I think Murtagh saw them kissing, so he gets really ticked and goes off, and that's when he gets beaten by the Grants, either before or afterwards, I don't remember. But essentially he is found drunk by Jocasta, and so we know in Outlander they have this really good romance as they're older, and that was one of the, like, sweet older romances that I really liked, because you can tell, like, at that point, you know, Jocasta was an old widow, she's blind, she has a plantation, she kind of runs by herself, but she's still a woman. And then Murtagh's obviously an old man who's been through Culloden, and in the colonies he's trying to do this rebellion to try to do right by the people, the other, you know, Scottish people living in the early colonies of America, because this was before the American Revolution and stuff. And so it's just like they had this sweet relationship that I really liked when they're older. And so I love the connections that they're building between Murtagh and Jocasta now that they're younger, because it kind of, like, reflects that they did have this connection. And honestly, I feel like they should have given Murtagh and Ellen a bit of a friendship, and because there's this precedent with Jocasta that they've already set, that Ellen gets everything and everybody gives her everything, and, like, Jocasta's kind of in her shadow, and Jocasta was forced to get married, and she has an issue with Ellen because Ellen chose somebody to marry her that Jocasta doesn't like, and so it was, like, the best Ellen could do, essentially, because she was the one who talking in their father's ear and everything. And so that's how the sisters kind of have a rivalry there, and I think it would have done even better if you have this guy Murtagh who had a friendship with Ellen, having these moments with Jocasta. That jealousy there would have been a little bit stronger. And also Murtagh later on, when he's talking to Claire in Outlander, how he loved Jamie's mom, and Jamie's mom chose Brian instead of him. It would have meant more if there was an actual friendship there, not just a crush from far away that he's never even spoken to Ellen before. So that was kind of a thing. But the moment when Jocasta finds Murtagh and he's drunk and everything, and so they're getting ready to kiss, and he says Ellen's name, so that stung. And so obviously that didn't end well between them, but it was a really good moment, and I love that he said her name, and just the soul crushing kind of thing. And I think that was mentioned later on in the future, whenever her and Murtagh start to get together as they're older. She mentions that, so that was kind of like a kind of a filling in some details there. So running through everything, I think that's pretty much everything in the episode. And again, the Brian and Ellen stuff was really good in this one. The Jocasta and Murtagh stuff was really good. The Murtagh seeing Ellen and Brian together and getting mad, the Grants beating up Murtagh over it was really sad. Ellen kind of having to walk around with Malcolm Grant for a while, and then her and Jocasta kind of had this plan, and that's how they were able to get away for the night of the festival. Henry's still searching for Julia. That was really good. Julia was kind of yeeted out of the episode, but they've kind of been going back and forth and stuff. So overall, I really enjoyed it. It was like a 5-star episode, and like the historical festival and the setting of the festival allowed them to jump around to a lot of different characters and do all of this like drama, and it was just super, super entertaining, and I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite episodes, and that's part of why I'm able to recap. I actually did not read anything about it, even though I have the webpage pulled up, and I was able to actually recap all of that from memory because it stood out and I can remember it. Like, it just stood out as a really good episode. So this is like weeks and weeks after we watched it, with the other episodes afterwards still in my head. So yeah, so overall it was a 5-star episode. What did you guys think of episode 5? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. In the meantime, if you liked my review of episode 5 of Blood of My Blood, then check out and wait for my review of episode 6. It'll be here.